Welcome back to LA Fishguys Aquarium Tech Talk. We're covering the APEX installation right now at Jim's house. Next item of business is going to be the wiring. And as part of wiring, network is a big consideration. The APEX allows you the ability to remote monitor, and also in configuration and setup you need to connect to it via the network. And there's a couple ways to connect, obviously. Hardwire, which is the way I prefer, because any firmware updates and stuff like that need to be done via hardwire. Or the other option is wireless, in which case you need a wireless bridge of some sort, like a network gaming adapter, Apple Airport. There's a number of ways to connect wirelessly, but again, if you do a wireless connection and you want to do a firmware update, you still got to move the APEX to a wired connection, which would mean disconnecting everything and bringing it near your home router. Now in Jim's case, his tank is quite a ways away from his home router, and while the Neptune APEX does include a network cable, it's not going to be long enough to connect his APEX from here 30 feet away to where his home router is. So I brought this very long network cable, and instead of running it across his house, what we're going to do is we're going to run it through a hole we have in the wall of the garage wall, through his attic, into his office, down through the ceiling, and over to his router. And before I get into any of the other APEX wiring, I do want to have that wire run. I'm not looking forward to it because this requires me to go into his attic where Jim probably has a lot of spiders and stuff like that. Spiders I don't mind, but most attics are insulated, and I look at fiberglass installation and it makes me itch. If I think about it, it makes me itch. So I did bring along a long sleeve shirt, sweatshirt, which in Southern California when it's pretty hot out is not a great thing when you're running into an attic, but anything to keep the fiberglass away. Like I said, I can live with the spiders, but the fiberglass installation and stuff, that I could do without. So without any more dilly-dallying, we're going to run this long cable through Jim's attic and into his office, where I can plug it into his router, and we'll run it in here, and then after that we'll get into the basic connections of the APEX. So off we go. Wish me luck. This light is probably going to die on me about halfway through. Oh, jeez. Excuse me, spiders.
Try not to put as much weight on that shelf. Hi there, Spider-Man.
No kidding.
How was it up there?
Fun. Not. Alright, so we got our wire run, we got it to the office. Got it to there. Just drop this down the wall back here. So we get to our APEX. Feedimus. Get this nasty shirt off. And wipe the sweat off my face.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. Wire through the wall. So when we set up Jim's tank, we ran a piece of PVC through the wall, so we had a nice little wires chase, place I can run my wires through. Also doubles a place to run the tubing through. I picked up a couple of Uniseals. The Uniseal is a little rubber kind of union type of seal that is used in certain instances, like sumps that are the old plastic root type of sumps and stuff like that. It's a rubber seal that would normally go, you drill a hole put the rubber seal, and then you shove your pipe into it and it expands the seal so that it makes a kind of union, or bulkhead rather, type of seal, not union. But anyhow, I got a couple of these uni seals. We put one on each side of the PVC pipe to kind of seal it in there in the wall. So we'll run our little network cable in there. That way we got that to the tank. And we're going to go in and plug the other end of this into Jim's router, and then we can start on the APEX wiring. So let's go on into Jim's office and set up the router. Sorry. I got it in just a sec. Yeah, we should have enough there. Spider fucking webs. It'd been nice if Jim actually, you know, cleaned some stuff up, knowing that I was going to be crawling around in here.
I just thought you'd be getting ready for Halloween.
Yeah. Joke's on me, I guess, and the spider webs. Alright, so we got Jim's DSL router back here. Empty network port there.
How about? Okay.
Alright. So, now I'm going to go pick some spider webs out of my hair before I get under his tank.
At some point, there comes a time in everyone's professional career where they must move forward. They must embrace that next leap of technology. I've been building and maintaining aquariums for 31 years, and I've always shied away from the latest gadgets, the newest lights, those high-tech fancy controller systems. I didn't get on board initially because I knew they were not long-term field tested. But even later, I still avoided these controllers and monitors because they seemed overly complex, and no surprise, I'm the furthest thing from a techie kind of guy. After now being introduced to the APEX system by Scott, I realized that 2016 was the year for me to have my electric moment. So what changed? Neptune Systems has been creating aquarium monitoring and controlling systems for nearly 18 years. So they've been around for a long time. But over the last few years, they snuck up on me and created a system to monitor your aquarium from anywhere in the world and control all the devices without having to be an electrical engineer. Okay, so you've got my attention now. The system is called APEX, and the cloud-based software it comes with is called APEX Fusion. APEX Fusion is the recent improvement that has made it so super simple. Using the step-by-step Get Started guide, the APEX was easy to install and get connected up to their APEX Fusion cloud-based control. In only a matter of minutes, I got the basics going and could monitor all the tank's vital signs: temperature, pH, ORP, salinity, water levels, leaks, and tons more from anywhere in the world. It'll even send me text messages. That 24/7 monitoring is key because it's the insurance policy against the top failures that will destroy not only your livestock, but your ultimate enjoyment of the aquarium hobby as well. If that alone was not enough, the APEX is the Swiss Army knife for your tank. It can control many different aspects of the aquarium that often require many discrete pieces of equipment. This can save tons of money, from pump control to dawn to dusk dimming of lights to dosing control. It does it all. My revelation for 2016? I think the APEX is a key component of a successful aquarium. And remember, if I say it's easy to set up and use, that says it all. Have you heard of this new aquarium superfood? It's true. Larry's Reef Services blends a premium, human-grade, frozen food called LRS Reef Frenzy, and it's good enough to eat.
LRS Reef Frenzy for reef tanks.
LRS is the first food that contains lab-verified probiotics.
And LRS makes Fish Frenzy for small fish and nano reef tanks.
LRS is supplemented with fatty acids and vitamin C.
LRS also offers Herbivore Frenzy for tangs and other plant-eating fish.
LRS is made with fresh Carolina seafood.
And LRS makes a Fish Frenzy in a chunky version for big fish.
LRS is crafted by hand, by hobbyists, for hobbyists, and made in the USA.
LRS Frozen Foods. Good enough for the fish, good enough for me.
For more information, visit reeffrenzy.com. Do you have an aquarium question? Are you looking for aquatic answers? Just key in wetwebmedia.com. Wetweb Media has information on freshwater, marine, brackish, and planted aquariums. Wetweb Media is staffed by the capable Wetweb Media crew. Check today's facts, ask questions, or search keywords. That's wetwebmedia.com. One of the best things about going with an Apex is that you become one of the tens of thousands of other owners that love helping each other out. Maybe you get stuck, or maybe you just want to simply take on a new DIY project. Whatever your question is, the Neptune Systems Community Forum brings all of those thousands of users together to help you answer it. Many of the things discussed in this video series are also covered there in various posts. Or add your own question and start the conversation. That's forums.neptunesystems.com.
All right, welcome back. So we've got our network cable run. Next step is connections, and since we're going to be doing connections, one of the items that we will be connecting to the Apex is the AFS, which is their auto feeder. I'm going to just touch on this briefly right now. There's two ways of attaching this to the top of the tank. First is with a little clamp, which is ideally suited for a rimless tank setup. It clamps onto the bottom here and then would clip onto a rimless tank, and it's got a little adjustment there. You can adjust the spacing and tighten it down. Jim's tank has a slight rim around the top. It's not like a European style tank or one of the ones with a plastic rim around it. So we're going to use a second method, which is Velcro. And I've chosen a spot on top of the tank that's going to be out of the light, so it's not going to cause really any shading. It's also in a good area of the flow that it's not going to wind up when the feed goes on. It's not going to wind up in the overflow because the return lines will push it to that side of the tank. So we're going to go stick this up in a corner. When you do mount this, keep in mind that this little thing that holds the food comes out, extends out. So you do want to set it so that it's going to extend out enough and drop food into the tank. But we're going to go attach this to the top of this tank real quickly so we have our Aquabus connection ready to go. Now this auto feeder does not utilize power, it just gets its power from the Aquabus connection. So we'll plug a little Aquabus cable in there. Stick this up on top of the tank over here. It's secure. Drop our Aquabus cable down there. Come out, dump food. Good. The feeder is ready, it's securely attached. When he wants to add food, he just carefully slides that piece out. Open the lid, dump his food in there. Nifty little adjustment to adjust how much food comes out per rotation. Small pellets that we're using, so it doesn't need to be open a lot, but if you look carefully in there, you can see there's that little adjustment there. Close that back up, stick it in, we'll worry about food later. Go ahead and close his lid. And on to the connections. Alright, so we got our feeder wire run down. Now, Apex itself gets its power from the EV8 power bar. So this at some point will get plugged into the wall once we're ready to fire it up. key connections down here are going to be the components. They get connected to the Aquabus cable, which is that USB looking cable, these things here. Apex brain, it gets connected to an Aquabus cable to the EVA. So that's going to be our first item of business, is connecting that cable, the Aquabus cable, to our EVA. And to get in here, and our EVA has these little USB kind of connections, but they're not USB. As I said before, don't ever plug these into your computer. We're going to plug this up into there. Now, this Aquabus cable will provide power for our Apex, and it'll also let the Apex know that it has an EV8. And if we wanted to add more of these EV8s, you'd add another EV8 and use one of these cables to go from one EV8 to the next. Next item of business is the Aquabus cable. Oops. Aquabus cable from the feeder. We'll plug that in here to our EV8. So now that connection is made. Clean that wire up afterwards. And we got to plug our display. Plug that right in there. That also uses an Aquabus cable. Find our network cable wherever it may be. Not good. Not good at all. Now, network cable goes into the Ethernet port. And we also have our breakout box. And that's going to get plugged into the breakout box port, or the I/O port. Alright, next item of business is our Temp Probe. Where's our Temp Probe? Right here's the Temp Probe. Now, looks like it's got a little cap on it. That cap is not removable. You do not remove the cap off the Temp Probe. Just drop this into our sump, out of the way. Neptune makes a very nice probe holder. Unlike a pH or ORP probe, the temperature probe is a slightly larger diameter, and the Neptune probe holder takes account for that and actually has a probe port that is a little bit bigger than a traditional pH or ORP probe. Hand me that little probe thing here. This is a typical probe holder, and these openings here are the right size for a pH, ORP probe, or conductivity probe, but temperature probe, as I said, it's a little bit larger diameter, won't fit in there. So Neptune Systems has a probe holder that takes account for the larger probe port. Needless to say, so we've got our temp probe. We're going to just set it in there for the moment. And this gets plugged into the temp probe spot. And you'll notice that everything is neatly labeled, which makes plugging everything into your system pretty much brainless. We're going to wait till the very end to connect our pH probe, because the pH probe is going to require some calibration. So we'll get to that. But in the meantime, we've got our display, we've got everything in here wired up. The next step is going to be to plug the EV8 power bar in so that we can power the system up. So I'm going to do that, and right now I'm going to have to disconnect his light power, and we'll fire those back up afterwards. So, as I said, next step, power up the APEX. Disconnect our lights. We've now plugged in our EV8. And now the system will initialize. It should come to life. All right. We have life. Very nice. Now you can go in through the APEX web interface and reconfigure the display to have different things up there. And you can also go in here through the main menu and do basic setup. And one of the things that we're going to want to take a look at here is going to be his IP port, because we are going, or his IP address, so that we can do that ORP setup. ORP. We want to disable that probe. It is off. And through this you can set your temperature to Celsius or Fahrenheit. You can calibrate temperature, you can calibrate things as well. We'll get to calibration later. But as you go through here, these are the various things. Now we need to get the IP address of this system that's set up. IP address. Let's go see if we can connect to it. Let me grab my iPad. Type in the IP address, 192. Got it. Excellent. Alright, so as APEX is online, next item of business is going to be to go to Jim's computer, establish the same connection, and we're going to update the firmware. No reason to run on the firmware that's on there now. We know that firmware is old, so we're going to go through and do the two-step firmware update process before we do anything further. Once we've got the firmware updated, next item of business will be to connect his pH probe and do that calibration. After that, we're going to go through and do the basic outlet setup, and then from there we'll work on his automatic top off and make use of our breakout box. So stay tuned as we move forward with a Neptune APEX setup on LA Fishguys Tech Talk.